Hello, Albany tutors. I'm here tonight with a video for week 1, cycle 1 science experiment, baby bean, which is number 45 in the Van Cleves book. And a great couple of resources I found on CC Connected that I think will be tools for you are what we talked about at training by Nicole Liam. It's fabulous. Walks you through the whole brand new scientific method sheet that they have in the Foundations Guide 5th edition, and just really explains it well. It's even scripted. You can also find some dialectic conversation starters on CC Connected with user, I don't know how to pronounce it, so I'm just going to put it up here. It's MNKRICAU, dialectic conversation starters. And she just gives more questions for helping get the conversation going. Also, if you want more ideas for the research, you need more information about the experiment, Sabra Willis has the Why with Miss Wizzle, and it just breaks it down with more information. And then also user KN Hampton has a sheet for every week that walks you through the naming acronym that is new to the Foundations Guide this year as well. So I'm going to use a little bit of all of this as I walk you through this experiment. So how I would start is I would have the scientific method up on my board and just walking the kids through, telling them, science is a time for figuring out things we don't understand, trying to dive deep in, maybe even discover something new, but to learn new things, and that means we have to learn how to ask good questions. So we start with a question, we do some research, what do we know, what do we need to find out, we make a good hypothesis, an educated guess as to what we think is going to go on in this experiment, and then we do our experiment. This is where we'll talk about materials and procedures of our experiment. We're going to analyze it, we're going to sit back and talk about all the things we discovered, and then we're going to come to a conclusion. So I would walk them through that and just keep that up so we can follow the steps as we go. And then I would just use this discussion guide by Nicole Liam and just start with, okay, today we're going to dissect a bean. We're going to look at a dry one first and then a wet one. And we're going to learn about how a baby plant forms. So what kind of questions do you have about plants or beans? What will it look like inside? You can go through all these questions. Then you're going to say, well, what do you already know? Let's do some research. What do you already know about seeds and plants and how they grow and how they get their food? And they don't know lots of things. And you say, okay, well, what do we need to find out? And you can prompt them with some of these questions, like what are the parts of a bean? How does it get its food? How does it grow? And then, your hypothesis. What do you think it will look inside a bean? And get all those answers from them. And then we're going to do the experiment. And we say, what materials are we going to have in this experiment? So what I'm going to give every tutor is going to be enough of these dry beans per student, just a dry pinto bean. And then everyone's going to have a mason jar that's going to already be filled with water and beans that have been soaking in my refrigerator for a couple of days. And a paper towel so that when they each take out a bean to put in front of them to dissect it, they have a place to put it for the water to soak up. Okay, so those are materials, and our procedures are going to be that we are going to first dissect, take apart and look inside as much as we can, the dry bean. And this is where the names acronym comes into play. The first thing we're doing is naming. So we're telling the kids we're going to introduce some new vocabulary, some new grammar. And these are some words that name the parts in our seed. And so the cotyledon is actual food. Inside the seed, there's food for the plant to grow. We're looking for the micropyle. It's the small opening that a pollen grain, which comes from flowers, enters. And then we're looking for the hilum, where the bean is attached to the pod wall, the epicotyl, which forms the leaves, the hypocotyl, which forms the stem, and the radicle, which forms the root. So we're going to name all these parts. And this is where in both the dry and the wet seed, we're going to name what we can see, and then we're attending to it. Attending is that we're just paying really close attention to everything that's happening and all the parts, and asking lots of questions. We're just really involved in what's going on. So they're going to look at the dry bean, and this is where this awesome visual from Nicole Liam's sheet on CC Connected comes in really handy. She's got some great visuals of where the parts on the seed are to help you guide your students. And then the Van Cleves book also has some great diagrams to show you where the different parts are. So you're going to help your students find those parts. And then they're going to take their wet bean and they're going to compare it. They're going to pull it out and they're going to compare it to a dry bean. And you can ask lots of questions about, what the difference in size and color and feel, where they feel, and just involving all the senses. They're going to peel off the outer layer very carefully with their fingernails. So you're going to end up with this little shell here, and then they're going to have the whole bean, and it will be splittable, and they'll be able to open up all the little parts in here and start to label all of those. And then if we move down to memorizing, basically you can point them forward. Well, to today we would have been learning, for week 1, we would have been learning the kingdom's classifications of living things, and we're going to continue to go on to learn plant parts and seeds and all these different things with biology. And so you can point them forward that we're going to be memorizing all sorts of cool stuff. We're going to just be analyzing what we learned, and part of our analyzing can be expressing. You can have your students take out a piece of paper or a notebook and draw the bean and label the parts, or make up a song about beans, or whatever. And then the storytelling part of this is more or less something that we do when they leave at home, telling somebody about the experiment, making up a story about a bean, thinking about stories that have beans in them, and from what they learned, what is true about Jack and the Beanstalk, and just different things like that. And then they're going to you're going to do a conclusion together. And this sheet from Nicole Liam has a great conclusion, figuring it out together, where it walks you through all of the different parts of the seed, and it just explains it really well. So I just really encourage you to use those different tools. If you have any questions as you're preparing, let me know. I know we're starting in very, very soon. So thanks for all your hard work. I appreciate it very much.